Well, here's a worldwide surprise this evening. China, after much resistance, is dropping its zero-COVID policy. The Chinese Communist Party unveiling 10 new guidelines which loosen some of the nation's harshest COVID restrictions. Officials now allowing home quarantine while ditching the health QR code issued by the government on the messaging app WeChat. Now, the QR code was needed for residents to enter public places for proof of no exposure to COVID. The change in policy coming after weeks of public outcry and protests. Now many are wondering, could this lead to more change in China? Senior fellow and director of Chinese strategy at the Hudson Institute and author of the book, The 100-Year Marathon, Michael Pillsbury, joins me. Good evening, sir. And why did they drop the zero COVID policy? They seem quite adamant about it. Was it pressure from the protests, or they just decided it was time?
No, it's both pressure from the protests, and also there's a split inside the Chinese medical science community. We know there's some fairly senior medical experts in China have opposed what Xi Jinping's been doing. They don't want to be outspoken and go to jail over it, but the protests helped make their case that the zero approach was just stupid and wrong. The changes are very clearly related to the protests. One of the 10 items that you mentioned has to do with not blocking fire exits. That was the most dramatic tip-off to the demonstrators, that when people were being burned alive inside buildings where the exits were closed. So this is a step forward. It shows just how clever Xi Jinping is. He's not stupid. He's often portrayed as kind of a rigid, stupid dictator. Not at all. He's gone with a different medical approach. He's handled the demonstrators. So we can expect this kind of clever strategy out of China, I think. They're not stupid.
We only have a minute left, but talk about a clever strategy. They still have not been cooperative on COVID. Do you think there's any pressure we could put on that country just to tell us what happened?
Absolutely. This is part of what Kevin McCarthy's idea is. I enjoyed your interview with him. If he becomes speaker, he wants to form a select committee on China from all the committees in the House. There's some good Democrats on China who also want to put pressure to get to the bottom of the COVID cover-up, let's call it. So there is still hope, but it's going to take really clear pressure on Xi Jinping. If you don't let us find out what happened at the lab, you're going to pay a heavy price. We now know, Greta, from these protesters, Xi Jinping will reply to pressure. We have to hope that will happen on the COVID issue as well.
Well, it certainly has been, stunning. It's been now a couple of years, and we still, it sure would help to know a little bit more about it, just so we can try to figure out how not to have it happen again. Michael Pillsbury, thank you, sir.
I hope you keep pressing, Greta.
Thank you. I'll try. An update from police in Moscow, Idaho on the murders